Good afternoon, greater Philadelphia area. This is Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. Sarah Timon is on the Schuylkill Expressway. It must be really nice out because everyone's out. She'll be with us momentarily here. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at Remax Main Line. And we have got some fascinating topics to talk about today. We're going to unpack the jobs report that came out last week and the risk of a recession that could drive mortgage rates lower. We've also got some data around inventory growth and housing demand. We'll cover that momentarily here. In our second segment, the merger and acquisition that grabbed a lot of people's attention yesterday. Rocket.com bought Redfin. We'll talk about what that means for the market and some of the other competitors in the space. And lastly, there is a lawsuit going on right now in New York City about commissions between Douglas Elliman and Sirhan. And I'm going to explain why this could be a major problem if this ruling is upheld. So if you get some value out of this or you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel. You can hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team, specifically Sarah, you can do that with the link in the comments. So we had our jobs reports come out last week, and U.S. payroll growth totaled 151,000 in the month of February, less than expected. The target was 170,000 from the forecast that we saw from all the economic predictors that are out there. And it's better than the downward revision we got for 125,000 in January. Federal government employment declined by 10,000, even though government payrolls rose by 11,000, which is wild considering everything going on with DOGE at the federal level right now. And we saw unemployment also move a little bit. It came in at 4% with an expectation, 4.1% with an expectation of 4%. So we've got this kind of mixed jobs report here. And if you look at these numbers, obviously there's been a lot of cuts at the federal level. Payroll growth was a little below where the predictions were. And this report comes out amid efforts from the Department of Government Efficiency to pare down the federal government, starting with buyout incentives and mass firings that have impacted multiple departments. And if you look at wage growth came in at 4%, down from 4.1% in January. It climbed about 0.3%, and the annual increase was a little softer than the 4.2% forecast that we saw. So we're seeing wages came in a little lower. We're seeing employment numbers came in a little lower. And what we also saw last week was that mortgage rates dropped off a bit as well. The numbers we're seeing get quoted locally are between 6 and 5/8, 6 and 7/8%. Obviously, that depends on credit and debt to income ratio and a lot of different things. And, I think there's some uncertainty in the market right now. What we're finding is that the 10-year yield pulled back from its year-to-date peak on January 14th, and that brought mortgage rates with it. So we've seen some relief. And mentally, when you see these rates come in and they're at a 7 and they go down to like a 6 and change and a high 6 at that, mentally for a lot of people, that will cause them to jump back into the market. We've also got weather warming up. We've got a number of things happening here in the month of March that are going to bring folks back to the housing market. So there was a weekend interview with President Trump. He did this with Fox News. And, there was question, is he actually warning about recession or is he throwing caution to the wind? And there's been a lot of buzz with many speculating that the White House wants to see rates come down. I mean, that's very clear. That's very, very clear. It's something that they've talked about, not that the president can just make those decisions, but it's something that's been talked about. Logan Mohtashami at Housing Wire, he talks about this every week, and he's talked about some of the economic effects of Trump's policies, and the vibe coming from the White House has been a push for lower mortgage rates. And, so that's something that, we're starting to see here. And it's not a direct effect of what the White House is doing, but there's definitely that push. And when you see the 10-year coming down, right, that's really what sets mortgage rates. I mean, we're seeing that come in at like yesterday, 4.21%. Just last week, it was in the fours, right? 4.3, 4.32. So it's come down a good bit, and certainly down from where it was in January at 4.76. That is going to lead to lower mortgage rates. And, you know, if when you see the labor data, right, you see the unemployment rate at 4%, and it's been kind of up and down around 4% all year long. The potential drop in rates and also looking at these labor trends, if we want rates to fall below 6 or even come close to that level, the bond market has to anticipate a weakening economy. And that's really what a lot of people are concerned about right now. And if the labor market does deteriorate, the Federal Reserve is likely to reduce interest rates. So that's kind of the high level here. So what this really means is when you look at the predictors, we got a Fed meeting in 8 days here. There is an expectation that we're going to see rates hold. They're not going to do anything. There's a 97% chance the Federal Reserve is going to keep rates where they are, which I would be shocked if they made any sort of rate cut. But then you look at the next meeting. Next meeting's May 7th. And May 7th, all of a sudden, there's a 37.2% chance we may see a 25 basis point cut. And that's really the indicator here that I think what the Federal Reserve is doing and a lot of other people are doing is they are watching to see what's going to happen. And they're letting the economy play out a little bit here, which would tell people, you know, that are thinking about making real estate decisions and those sort of things, that, you know, you got to look at your needs first. You got to look at the opportunities first. But a lot of people are predicting we're going to see lower rates later this year. If you look at the predictions for the June meeting, there's a 55.4% chance rates are going to be 25 basis points less, and a 27.8% chance they could be 50 basis points less than where they are right now. So these are all the things that are getting kicked around. And I think that's the stuff you need to be aware of here as we look at where the market's headed. So, you know, what we see here when it comes to inventory is that we're 28% more of national single family home inventory than where we were last year. And so, I mean, that's a big jump. We're ahead of 2021 levels. We're ahead of 2022 levels. And we're ahead of 2023 and 2024 levels. So the only one that's kind of persistent there is that pre-pandemic single family home level of inventory. So that's what we're seeing heading into all this here. How was the traffic today, Sarah? That's sounds horrible, I'm gonna guess.
Yes.
I mean, it's rough out. You know, the sun comes out and then everyone just decides that I don't know what happens, but it's like they just hit a button and the traffic just increases immediately.
I know, and I feel like whenever that happens too, like any possible red light,
Yeah.
it's like you hit it and you're just like, ah.
We don't need to be like the Fast and the Furious here getting to the radio show. So I'm glad you're here safe and sound. So so we're seeing that inventories past all these pandemic levels here, with the exception of 2020. And as you kind of get settled here, we're talking about, you know, what the tick down in rates, what's going on with the jobs market, inventory bubbling up. Are you feeling that when it comes to like client conversations right now? I know you've been able to, you know, secure a couple homes for people over the past 14 days here. It seems like the gates are opening up a little bit when it comes to housing.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I've noticed a little bit of a spur of activity. I've also had on the like list side someone situation just that kind of came together yesterday where we had to move back a settlement date because of like other reasons. And they did want written in there that they'd have the option to switch switch lenders because they did see a change in the rate. So to try to take advantage of that, since we had to shift the date anyway.
Well, and I think there's a lot of people that all of a sudden they're seeing these sixes and it's getting them a little more excited than they have been about housing. And you know, that's why it's so important to let people know what's going on, because a lot of folks, they don't realize what's actually happening when it comes to these rates. So what we've seen when it comes to demand, and there's a housing index. It talks about demand and inventory and all sorts of stuff. It's done by T360 and the Bright MLS, and it shows that the compared to the last month, we're seeing demand has ticked up across all different segments of the market. So single family homes below 345, it's up. Single family homes between 345 and 762, and that's 762,000. Single family homes above 762,000, condos below 410, above 410, and even townhomes. The demand is up across the board, and that's just for the month of February. So I don't see this really changing anytime soon here, and that we're on this kind of run that's going to create, it's basically go time in the marketplace here. You feel like people are committing to a longer term home search now instead of like waiting, like they're actually getting ready to make a decision?
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like this is kind of, I feel like it does factor in just as it starts getting nicer out, they want to get out, they get more excited about doing really anything. So,
Yes.
and I think the home search is one of them.
Well, and to say the weather doesn't play into this here, I think is foolish, especially living in the Northeast. It's not like we're in like Florida or something like that. I can plug you in over here.
Okay.
I think you might like fall over. I can see like you falling over in your chair, and then there's all sorts of problems. So, but to your point, like the weather does open things up. I've seen homes where just you need like the grass to turn green, all of a sudden that the home sells. So, it's we're seeing more and more of that. So,
and it's nice when you can start to see like leaves coming on the tree. I mean, that hasn't like quite happened yet, but I feel like there's like different things you say for different times of the year, and when it's the deadest and like there's nothing on the trees and it's super bare, I usually point out like, hey, good news, you're seeing it like at the worst that it's ever going to look, like this is the most, if you're kind of close to neighbors or something like that, it's like this is the most that you're going to, where the bar is for when it's super bare, what you're going to see. And then it like fills in from there. But seeing it when it's spring and flowers and leaves just makes everything like happier.
Well, and I think it also, I mean, you think about some of these houses, right? Like you go to the backyard and you can like winter times, like it's pretty, I mean, the seasonal depression's real. Like we had spring forward this weekend. People, do kind of amp up. And, when you look at like some of these homes, like you see the other houses behind you, but then the trees fill and you don't see them. I think that can actually help sell the house in a lot of cases too. So, there is that positivity when the weather does warm up. And, we're seeing that when it comes to historically, you look at just what happens with inventory. You look at Bright MLS, or you look at what's going on nationally. I mean, we're getting into the peak season of single family new listings, where we typically see that peak sometime in July or August. It usually ramps up from like May, and then you see a peak in the summer, and then it kind of comes back down in January. This is the time of year for that. So you've got buyers, Sarah, you've got sellers. What do you say to these people that they're looking for guidance right now, because there's the uncertainty around the economy that people are talking about. Rates have come down a little bit. We're seeing more inventory, so that there's some very clear things happening in the market. When someone is like, what do I do? How are you talking to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that some of the concerns are, I mean, always, but like are valid and are real for, uncertainty with maybe security in jobs and what's going on. But I think that there's always a level of uncertainty. Like nobody has that crystal ball for what's going to happen next. So just kind of taking the pieces that you have in front of you and working with what you know, and kind of going from there. So I guess just kind of looking at it from like an individual standpoint, but yeah, just trying to get homes in front of people, get numbers in front of people, and answer any questions that I can.
Well, and like that's such it's really the way you want to handle this, because I just because inventory is rising doesn't mean people are seeing what they want. I think a lot of folks, they tend to think like, oh, there's all these there's still not like a plethora of options out there. And the flip side is for sellers, and I think you got to look at what your expectations are. Seeing this growth and seeing that rates have been persistently in the 6 to 7 range. If I'm a seller right now, I'm watching this pretty closely, because some homes are not moving like they used to. I mean, a couple of years ago, everything sold. Now we're not seeing that. It's very price sensitive. We're seeing the price adjustments and are up. So for the sellers that you have that maybe are a little uncertain what to do, what are you sharing with them? Are you sharing this inventory growth? Are you talking to them about pricing? What kind of advice do you have for those folks?
Yeah. In the last 2 weeks, I've had to adjust the price on 2 of my listings. And you just kind of go back and look at the feedback from people that have had showings, and if it's consistently that it's overpriced or they would pay X for it, then we need to take that into account. If it's not getting the amount of showings that we would be hoping for, we need to take that into account. And then we look at, because some of these homes, like maybe I guess maybe they signed the paperwork a while ago and it took a little bit for it to actually hit the market.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in that time frame prior to it hitting, I always rerun numbers to make sure we're still on track with where we should be. But as time goes by, more transactions are going to go pending, they're going to close. We can look at those numbers and see which way it's moving. And, sometimes price adjustments do need to be made in order to get some more action on the home. So depending on the person's situation and everything, we have to take that into account.
Well, and you got to be careful here because a lot of agents, like they avoid this conversation, and I've listed so many homes because the agent just never told them. So yeah. It's wild to me that happens. How do you approach that? Because to me, that's probably one of the harder conversations to have in real estate, and a lot of people are afraid of it, and they just kind of like stick their head in the sand and just hope the house is going to sell.
Yeah, I would say for both of the ones that I had to do price reductions for most recently, we had the conversation in advance for like, hey, like, I don't think this is something that we need to do yet, but this is something that we need to monitor. And then kind of kept an eye out for like when we would talk about it next. And so it wasn't out of the blue. It wasn't just like, oh, everything's great. Everything's great. Oh, absolutely. You're going to get this price. Oh, you need to do a reduction. No, It was always, the conversation was always, this is, and you rely on the comparable sales and you show what's going on, and it's not me, it's the market, so just kind of presenting the facts and then giving them the options like, hey, you do not have to do a price reduction, but as time continues to tick by, we do need to have people continue to come through. If we're not getting showings, if we're not getting offers, in some cases, people want to hang on for eventually a buyer that will come through and pay what they're looking for. In other cases, it's like, all right, well, if it's not going to be that number, like, where's it going to go at? Let's get the most out of this that we can.
Well, and I'm a big believer that if you're not having this conversation with your seller, you're just doing a total disservice to them, because you look at just what's going on with price adjustments just this past week. So this is last week. 7.7% of all the active listings had a price decrease, according to the entire Bright MLS service area. That's up 0.4% compared to last year, and 0.2% compared to the last week. So as we see demand pick up, right, you're seeing showing activity pick up, and then showings, we're up 9.8% compared to last week. So you're seeing more people come out. If you're not telling the seller that, you fail them as their agent. Now they don't have to do it, to your point,
right?
And that's, you always want to lead with that. Hey, we don't have to do anything here. That's right. An option. And what I know is, and then you explain what's going on in the market. That's how you really serve somebody, because agents have a tendency to tell people what they think they want to hear just so they get hired, instead of tell them what they actually need to hear so they can move. And if you're not getting an agent right now as a consumer that's having these conversations with you and like asking like why it's not selling, and they don't have any reasons. There's 3 reasons. Either it doesn't show well, the marketing's not working, which is a big problem anyway, or it's the price. That's really it. And there's things like the location, but you can't change a location. You can only compensate for price with location. So, what I'm hearing is you're future pacing a lot of people just to let them know, like, hey, we need to like be mindful of this. Is it usually better received that way?
Yeah. I don't think anybody wants to be told one thing the whole way through. Everything's, rainbows and great. And then, have it feel out of nowhere, just like, wait, what do you mean? So I think that's also why it's important to, have consistent conversations with your sellers. Every week having a touch point there, just so that you can you can kind of plant the seed for, hey, this would be an option. And then also kind of giving the full picture. Like it can change for a seller if they've already moved out of the property, if it's vacant, or if they're living there. So what is your carrying cost, especially if it's vacant? What's it costing you each month to maintain this vacant property? And then kind of factoring that into, okay, well, and depending on what that cost is, that could be the amount by which you need to reduce it by, in which case, if that's going to get the buyer in sooner and that's going to shave a month off of how long you're carrying this for, yes, it's a reduction, but look at it for like what your actual expenses are. I feel like it's really easy to kind of in anything, like not that this is manipulating, but like manipulate numbers, like different ways to make things look better or worse or whatever, but just kind of actually not manipulating, giving the full picture. But like, hey, this is what this is what's happening to your bank account, you know, and kind of giving that, because it's something that's can be easy to overlook, especially if you've got in your head, like, no, I really want to hit this price. At what cost?
And that's where it takes someone to really understand like what it costs to run a house. I mean, a lot of people think like they're taking money out of my pocket when they have this conversation, but if it's costing you $4,000 a month to carry the place, and you're talking about a $10,000 price adjustment, you're holding on for 3 months, guess what? You lost. Like That's just how it is. And a lot of agents don't understand this stuff. They don't get property taxes, insurance. Vacant properties insurance goes up for vacant properties. It's a higher risk premium. So,
and if you're in a place that has like a monthly HOA or something like that, I mean, that could really add up quickly.
Could not agree more. So for sellers right now, I'd be looking at like what kind of activity and feedback you're getting, because if you start to hear price, and you've had more than 10, 15 showings, then that's something you need to pay attention to. The flip side is if you're a buyer, you need to be mindful of like there might be an opportunity for those homes that have been on the market a couple weeks, or if there's a lot of activity and you see there's more competition coming and that there's more demand right now, you might need to listen to your agent about the 10 different ways you can win an offer, which we could go on and on about. So, before we break here, knowing that we're into, the spring selling season, I think it's very clear that we've entered that time of year. And it doesn't always start the same day, right? It's not that Super Bowl nonsense. Everyone was hungover the day after the Super Bowl here, at least most people. I was at the office, but I know you weren't hungover either. So it was, but I mean, that's such nonsense. But the market's broken at this point. I mean, I know you're feeling it as well. What advice do you have for the people that maybe don't really know what to do and need some direction?
Do you mean buyers, sellers,
anybody?
Both? Again, like everything is, it comes down to like your own circumstances. So just kind of presenting the facts and then showing them like a path to get to where they're trying to get to.
I think that's such a great plan. Hey, let me give you the data. Let me show you what it's going to take to do this. Here's the procedural stuff we got to go through. And then let's focus on what's most important to you. It's very simple.
Yeah.
This business isn't that complicated, ladies and fellas. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. Another merger and acquisition. People got all kinds of opinions about this. Rocket.com bought Redfin yesterday for $1.75 billion. We'll break it down next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
Local mortgage service and great rates on your money.
I'm all stressed out, Roland.
We've been operating in the greater Philadelphia
One of my like good friends, her dog just passed away over the weekend.
That's horrible.
I know.
What was the dog?
It's a German Shepherd.
Oh wow! So they live long, right? Or longer, I guess.
She was like 10. She got her.
Oh, wow.
She like rescued her from I think it was in like Tennessee or something. Like a family moved and just like left her in the backyard, and there was like a really high fence. She was back there for like weeks.
That's probably
This was like 8 years ago or 7 years. So
like talk about someone who has no personal responsibility. Like just leave a dog somewhere. Like
just drop it. Like take it to a shelter. Like if you can't take it with you and you're moving. Like I don't know how. Like, but and so the dog had cancer, but went through chemo and had just gotten scans. Everything was clear. Everything was fine. And then all of a sudden, I think it was like a different cancer.
That sucks. There's like a point where it's like how much money you gotta spend on like chemotherapy for the dog too, which is like I'm not against that, but it's like it keeps happening.
I know. Well, I think for this one, there wouldn't even have been a treatment option. It was like
really bad. That's not good.
Yeah. So
that sucks.
But I think I'm gonna list her house.
Because the dog.
No, but it was already like in the plan.
Yeah, that's great. Where she live?
Havertown.
Great listener. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we are talking about this big merger, Sarah. Rocket.com, they bought Redfin. We're also going to talk about a commission lawsuit that has some serious implications for real estate agents in the third segment. So if you get some value out of this, you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with Sarah from our team, we've got many happy listeners that have worked with her. You can do that with the link in the comments. So Rocket.com. So Rocket Mortgage, they rebranded as Rocket.com. Apparently they had some commercial during the Super Bowl. I was paying too much attention to the game, so I still haven't seen it. And I don't know about you. I don't watch much television with commercials anymore. So it's a weird thing. So Rocket Mortgage and the Rocket companies announced on Monday they are acquiring Redfin, a discount brokerage model, for $1.75 billion, all stock. So they didn't get any money. And the idea is to integrate Rocket Lending with Redfin's home search. I've heard a lot of good things about Redfin's website. I know a lot of people tend to like that. What's your initial reaction to this before we get into like the deal and what it might mean? I mean, some people on our team were texting me. I've got some opinions about this, but I want to hear from Sarah Timon.
Well, I mean, typically from like the mortgage side for like Rocket, that's not something you want to see on the if an application comes in. That's not the lender that you're looking for. And then Redfin is traditionally a discount brokerage, right? So it kind of seems like two sides are pairing up that maybe are sometimes difficult to get through transactions with.
Sure. I think that is a great observation from someone that is in the industry, but is also focused on her business more so than like all the industry nonsense. We do that podcast every Friday, The Knowledge Brokers. And so Byron Lazine picked Redfin and Glenn Kelman as the biggest loser prediction of the year. And it came to fruition 71 days into the year. I mean, that's pretty incredible. I mean, they were at like a much higher market cap a couple years ago, and they ended up selling for $1.75 billion. I don't think that the discount model never catches on. Like there's some sellers that are attracted to that. I think the buyers that work with these companies, I've found a lot of cases they're very dissatisfied with them because I know for a fact Redfin agents get paid literally to open doors. Think about in how competitive the market is right now. If you got someone just opening doors rather than giving you guidance, would that get old quick? Or think about like the consumer side.
Right. I mean, I guess it also might depend on what they know and don't know. So like they might not realize that is not the level of service that you can get with other agents. So they might be kind of just like unaware and not have anything to compare it to. But yeah.
Well, and I think you're absolutely right. So to give some perspective here, they had a 10 billion market cap at their peak, Redfin, and they sold for 1.75 billion. So that's 17.5% of where they were. So, that kind of, and it was 20 years in the making. But I mean, there's so many of these discount brokerages that go out of business. I'm surprised they were able to sell it for what they did. I think that's actually a good move to get out. It's what I see here is Rocket's basically saying they want to be a brokerage with mortgage, kind of like you're talking about. There are some negative connotations to Rocket Mortgage because they don't close on time in a lot of cases. They have, their rates aren't that great. There's always like problems like, oh, we didn't get this, we didn't get that. Like, and I that's where the local lender can always outpace these big box companies. I get why they merged. Or not merged, but I get why they're working together now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to sometimes actually trust the pre-approval because it's just, I mean, you can get that without even talking to somebody, right? Like you can just input some basic information to get that document to submit an offer. And when you're reviewing things, when you're representing a seller, you want to be confident that the deal is going to be able to make it to settlement without hiccups. So when you've got something that, and then being able to actually get in touch with a person to confirm.
That's a big problem.
Is difficult on that end. versus like with a lot of other lenders, they pick up, or they call you and they
Yeah.
say like, hey, I want to vouch for my client. I know that they just submitted an offer, you know?
I think that's a great observation, because when you're chasing down these people, and then there's always like the time delay, right? Like because they're out in the West Coast, at least for us people on the East Coast. So then you can't get a hold until like 12, and then business is over at 5, and they're like out to lunch because it's their lunch break. It's a whole problem. And I do think there's going to be a challenge here for some of these folks. Now, Rocket is doing a lot of mortgages. They're a very successful company. I mean, so there's that to be aware of as well. And when you look at how the market reacted to this, so Redfin's stock was down like 54% before the merger. It's up over 73% now that the merger's over. So I think the market, it was at $9.93, and then it went up to $10.11. May not seem like a lot, but it's a lot. And I think that the one thing that Redfin has going, which I think is going to help Rocket, is the portal that they have built is very popular with consumers. And to me, that's really what Rocket's buying, is they're buying a portal. And so, because you never hear people are going like, I'm not going to the Remax.com website. You don't hear that about any of the other websites that are out there, with the exception of Redfin. It's really like Redfin, Zillow, Realtor.com. Those are the three I hear mentioned all the time. What do you get a lot of clients sending you things from Redfin, or they look on Redfin?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Most recently, the clients I've been working with, I haven't been getting a ton of Redfin like links or screenshots or things like that. But yeah, no, I've absolutely gotten that.
I mean, it's popular enough that we know about it, and I think that's what you want to look at here. So, what I see here, I see something a little different, where you've got these portals that are out there, right? So we're partners with Zillow, and they have Zillow Home Loans, right? They have their own mortgage branch right now. I look at Rocket as saying, hey, we're going to go acquire the door openers. And Zillow actually works with local agents. I mean, they work with our team, obviously. I'm a big believer Zillow Flex is like the best new agent training program out there. You want to eventually like diversify your business. I mean, we've gone through that planning together, but it's a great way to get in touch with people right away. Now they're pushing Zillow Home Loans. This is Rocket doing the opposite, where they've got the mortgage branch, and now they're trying to incorporate the brokerage portion here. Because remember, they rebranded. It used to be Rocket Mortgage. Now it's Rocket.com. So I see them as someone that's eyeing up, like, can we compete with Zillow here? Like Homes.com tried to, and CoStar. And they've got some manpower in place to do that with agents that are on a very different compensation model. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the fastest way to get in with a site that people are already using the portal. So, being able to integrate with that and directly kind of connect their lending side of stuff. I mean, I'm sure they'll see success with it.
I think they will, for sure. I mean, it's because they like the model on its own, just the discount model. The people like the agents that they attract are looking for guaranteed money. And I think in this business, you actually need someone that has some skin in the game to get these deals to close. Think about how hard some of these transactions are that you've closed. And if you were just getting a paycheck, I mean, I'm not saying you, but I think some people be like, I'm getting a paycheck here. I don't really care what happens.
Right. Yeah. Cause I mean, a lot of them, not in every deal, is just getting under contract the hard part. Like there's a lot that can happen when in order to get to the finish line. And it's there's a lot of pieces sometimes that need to come together, a lot of people that need to work together with like that level of commitment there of, we're going to get this done.
Yeah, and some agents, I mean, I've seen them literally like just throw their hands up in the air when it gets hard, and they don't know what to do, and they're like, I don't know what to do here. And it's like, well, I don't always know what to do. I know you're in that boat too, but you got to find out. You got to look for options, and that's the challenge you run into with these discount models. That's why so many of them have failed. I mean, I could give you a long list of. I remember like Assist to Sell was like this cutting edge company back in like 2004. You probably don't even heard of them. Purple Bricks, right? I mean, the list goes on. Help You Sell, like the list goes on and on and on. And Redfin, they tried to do it, they couldn't do it. That's why they sold. So I do see Rocket, like this play for them is to, hey, like how do we compete with Zillow? I think that's really what they're aiming for here.
Yeah. Well, and as people get used to having all those different pieces in one place, they may expect that with the next one. So they kind of want to go into something that's all integrated.
And there is a consumer for that. I mean, some people do like doing these things all on their own. Now, I've seen these discount model Redfin specifically. I've seen them cost people money just with like mistakes they make, like all the time during the transaction, not getting inspection replies in on time, not submitting like the appraisal contingency or letting timeframes pass, not calling someone before submitting an offer and writing an over ask offer where there's no competition. Like this is stuff that happens. So here's some of the comments here. So the Rocket CEO, Varun Krishna, said, Rocket and Redfin have a unified vision of a better way to buy and sell homes. Together, we will improve the experience by connecting traditionally, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, disparate steps of the search and financing process with leading technology that removes friction, reduces costs, and increases value to American home buyers. Sounds great in theory. Glenn Kelman said Rocket and Redfin's approaches to lending and brokerage service have always been two halves of one vision to make the whole home buying process magical. We want a consumer to be able to check their phone to find out what she can afford, see which homes are just right for her, schedule a tour with a local expert Redfin agent. I have a real problem with that. I don't think many of them don't have the expertise. Get pre-qualified for a loan all in a matter of minutes. Varun and I see how much better real estate could be when AI guides customers not just through the first step, but all the way home through the sale, the loan, then a lifetime of accumulating equity and wealth. A good agent's already doing that.
It sounds magical.
I mean, got a wand here. Maybe he's one of those like Chris Angel magicians. He's got a cool like outfit on. Good agents already do this stuff. I mean, think about how fast you could connect someone with a lender that we work with. We've got a lot of great lenders. They could be on the phone with them like very quickly. And the thing with Rocket that doesn't happen is they don't vet all the documents properly. Like, are they uploading tax returns in those couple of minutes?
Right.
Most people don't have that stuff like on their phone.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if they're West Coast, but like hours wise, I mean, I know a lot of local lenders out here that it can be 7 p.m. on a weekend. And like, we see a place, we want to get an offer in where we need to like make some adjustments or see like, can this still work? And they pick up.
They pick up and have a detailed conversation and they say, I need X, Y, and Z. And it's, you can get an online approval anywhere. You can make up an income number, right? But it's all subject to tax returns and documents and everything else. And, some people, their tax returns and their financial situation is complicated. Imagine if you're a 1099 independent contractor, Sarah, right? Like you need 2 years, you need to have your tax returns filed. That's not going to be something that always can, I think AI can help that for sure. But most people don't. I don't really buy this here, and I think that's you do need some human element. Otherwise, this would have already happened by now.
Right.
So big loss for Redfin. They had to sell. Their vision's over. Rocket bought them. We'll see what happens. I'm skeptical until this comes together here. I don't know how you feel about this.
Right. I mean, I think even if it does come together, like, could that put a dent somewhat in like Zillow's like share of the market? I mean, maybe minimal, but like anybody's competing to be second best.
Well, I agree, and I don't think they're going to take market share from Zillow. I think they're going to take market share from other like smaller websites, and this is how business works: is that there's going to be winners in the marketplace, right? Just think about any large company, any powerful agent or team in the marketplace. That's not teams. Some people say like, oh, the teams compete with each other. I don't agree with that because those people are going to win no matter what. A good agent's going to find a way to go out and get business. A good lender is going to do the same thing. The people you compete with are the ones that have no business doing the job in the first place. That's who you take market share from.
Right.
Like if someone's interviewing the two top agents along the main line or in Chester County or wherever, congratulations, you got two great choices. It's probably not going to go wrong. But when they got their cousin's best friend's girlfriend, and the brand new agent who they knew in high school, and then someone with a track record, that's where the market share gets taken from in a lot of cases.
Right.
And I think this is going to be more the same. But I mean, Rocket's already doing some business, so I think they'll be able to flip it to the brokerage side. We'll see. I don't buy this statement though from Glenn Kelman, the magical statement. I'm going to get you like a magic wand or maybe a top hat for our next show here. So we'll see what happens. Good agents are already doing this. I wouldn't buy this propaganda they're putting out here. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. I want to talk about this Ryan Serhant, Douglas Elliman commission fight. There's some serious implications here for the brokerage community. And we're going to talk about it next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
Red tape when getting your mortgage from a
Yeah, I had this article.
online
You're
bank.
kidding me.
At
Now I
Mortgage
can't.
America,
It's like
you
behind a
have
paywall.
access to
I know,
big
that
bank
happened,
money,
yeah.
but
Well, I was able to read it.
personalized and detailed service
Josh
from
Rubin's
the
like,
local bank.
good friend.
We are
He came to the
here
Eagles
for
parade with me.
community and ready
Oh,
to serve
is
you.
that who, you had the
Yes,
picture with?
yes.
You sent that to me and I was like, I don't know who that is.
Well, I was just telling you I was at the parade. That was the only reason I. I was the only person who was hanging out with me all day because my family left because of the
Right.
horrible Uber driver.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And I was on the Parkway trying to get an Uber. Someone got shot a block away. It was a great day.
Oh my God.
Can you like think about that?
So crazy.
Yeah, let me see if I can open this here. I had this up this morning. I kept it open. It just refreshed on me.
Making us the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania and a top 1% team nationally. Our agents love us because we offer them a successful career, a great life, and an unbeatable culture. Agents who've been with us for at least a year average 30 plus sales. Even our brand new agents average 17 to 24 sales a year. We offer
I know the story of it, so I'll
and
just explain
expert
it.
training. We help you set more appointments and sell more houses. Now here's the offer. If you don't have a real estate license yet, we offer real estate scholarships so you can get one for free. Check it out at realshipprogram.com or visit the Tom Toole sales group at RE/MAX Mainline at tomtoole.com.
Yeah, that,
That's Tom
the agent that submitted
Toole.com.
the
Get more out of your
1.1, he texted me yesterday, like very shortly after it got taken down. So I called him and he had said, I was like, hey, I'm not gonna hold you to it. Like, what kind of offer were you thinking? And he said the 1.1. I was like, I can tell you we projected things way higher than that, but like,
I'm on call.
certainly
I'm not so wide.
send it in.
I'm just glad that they were like stressing me the hell out. I'm like, everything's on phone.
Yeah.
I can't deal.
Right.
I'm like really getting my like groove back, like generating stuff. So it's like I'm like whatever.
Right.
He's not gonna cooperate.
Yeah.
Call us today at 610.
Christ, look at all the business you got going on. I mean, it's like.
Yeah.
Visit tomtoole.com. Join our team, the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX. Stand by.
All right. All right. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we are talking about this commission lawsuit. This is not the same commission lawsuit we've talked about for what, like 2 years now? This is very different. There's a dispute happening in New York State between Douglas Elliman and Sirhan, and I'm going to break it down for you next year. And I think there's some major implications here that you need to be aware of. So if you get some value out of this, you'll like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications to stay up to date with the show. And if you want to schedule a call with our team, and Sarah specifically, we've got many happy listeners that have used, we got what, 2 that in the past like 30 days here. That's really what you want to pay attention to because we can help you navigate the current market, and Sarah's an absolute pro. So use that link in the comments to schedule a time with her. So let's talk about this commission lawsuit. So this is very interesting. So there was an article that came out on The Real Deal last week where there is a Sirhan and Douglas Elliman. So Sean McPeak from Sirhan and Josh Rubin. Full disclosure, Josh Rubin is a very good friend of mine. So I want to be clear with that. There's a commission fight over an expired listing agreement after a buyer was brought to a $4 million sale. So this is not like chump change here, right? I mean, and the short of this is that Sirhan had this property listed, Sirhan Brokerage, and Sean McPeak was the agent for them. The listing expired. So it happens all the time. The Douglas Elliman and Josh Rubin were, he was referred to the listing by a client of his. And it was someone that, you know, obviously put him in touch there. So Josh sells the property.
Okay.
And this goes on here. And apparently the listing agreement lapsed in October. Listing was taken in February. It was a referral from a client who lived in the same building. And then Sean McPeak, this agent with Sirhan, he brought a buyer, right? And the same situation has happened to me before.
Mhm.
And this person ended up buying the home, and Sean McPeak goes back and says, "Hey, I'm entitled to a finder's fee, and it's that he's entitled to the commission, and
For the
that
sale side and the buy side?
apparently, and this
But this was not a buyer that was brought through while
he was
had the
brought through
listing.
while he had the listing,
Okay.
but he came back. Now I've got some additional info here, but this is the premise. So I know what Pennsylvania contracts say. I haven't seen the listing contract. I don't know anything about this besides the Real Deal article. So the Pennsylvania contract says that you're entitled to a commission if the buyer was shown the home during the term of the contract. They closed within a certain period of time, and you don't hire another agent with an exclusive listing contract. It's got to be all of the above, right? That's what Pennsylvania says. It's on page 2. It's like the top third. So I pulled the New York State agreement because I don't want to speak to things that I'm not clear on here. Where is this New York State agreement? Of course, I had it up and I can't find it now. Basically, New York State says the same thing. I'll find it and read it here in a second. But they say the same thing. So, the problem I have with this is, where's the line here? Like, do contracts not mean anything anymore? I mean, this seems like the legal system's just broke. I mean, I don't know how you can say this gentleman's entitled to the fee for the buyer that he bought through if it says specifically in the New York State listing contract. Now, maybe they use their own contract. I don't know, but it's incredible to me that this is even happening right now.
Well, and especially, I mean, like, and the time frames being what they are, if it expired in October and then he, brought this person through that ended up making an acceptable offer in February. I mean, I kind of felt like that the finder's fee there was kind of to protect the agent from, bringing forward while you had the listings, real qualified buyers.
Yeah,
and then the like seller being like, no, waiting for it to expire, and then calling them and being like, hey, I'll take that offer, to kind of cut out the commission aspect of things.
You summed it up perfectly, Sarah, because I think that's exactly what it's in there for. It's like, hey, my contract's up tomorrow. Just call me directly. Right. And this stuff has happened, by the way. There's a reason this is in the contract. So here's the New York State agreement.
Well, and I mean, like, he has the buyer, so he's getting the commission on the buy side. Like,
I mean, that's what we're going to assume. I don't know the details. The Real Deal article doesn't say a lot. And I'll tell you what. So it talks about listing broker compensation. This is the New York State Association of Realtors. Now, New York City doesn't have an MLS. So again, you got to preface all these things. It's got almost the same language here. It says that said total compensation shall be earned and payable under the following conditions. Listing broker or cooperating broker produces a ready, willing, and able buyer to purchase the home with terms acceptable to the seller. If through the listing broker or cooperating broker efforts, a buyer and seller reach an agreement upon all essential terms, if the property is sold or rented. And then it talks about if within blank days after the expiration date of the listing period, this is the same thing Pennsylvania has, seller accepts a purchase offer on the property from any person to whom the property had been shown during the listing period, seller will pay listing broker the aforementioned compensation as if listing broker had made the sale, provided the property goes to closing. The preceding sentence shall not apply if during said period seller lists the property with another real estate broker.
That seems pretty cut and dry.
You would think. And the reaction, because then then you get the social media
especially
reaction.
If the date, I feel like what would be a double whammy or like a double nail in the coffin is like, do we know what, I guess they fill in the blank for the days.
Yeah, you can put in 1 day, you could put in 365 days. It's all agreed to.
Yeah. Because I'd be curious to hear what was the days listed there, which obviously if they hired another agent, it clearly states that then that's null and void anyway. But like it, especially if it was outside of the days that were listed there, then that's like 2 reasons why it's not valid.
Sure, I agree. So then, you get the social media stuff that gets shared, right? So Ryan Serhant puts on his story, good day for real estate agents. The fact that we even had to sue Douglas Elliman over this is still insane to me. The judge's ruling doesn't just side with Serhant. It sides with the good people. Our official comment. The court's summary judgment ruling confirms what we all knew all along. This case was clear-cut and justice prevailed. We believe in standing up for what is right, and the victory reinforces our commitment to integrity, protecting agents, and championing our principles. I think
so
that's
it got cited, like, so
the
agent-
judge ruled for Sirhan.
Okay. So then what happened to,
Well, it's going to
Really?
appeals is what's going to happen. So then you get all the back and forth here. And if that's what the listing contract says in New York, I don't know. I mean, that the legal system's broken if that's the case, because it's so clear. Like if you sign with another agent, this is all void.
Right.
It says it right there. So I don't know if they're making their own contracts or not. I don't have that answer. I haven't seen any of these documents.
I would almost think that they would have had to, because otherwise I don't know how you would.
Well, I think, and the thing you got to be aware of here too, like this has happened to me. I've been on the other side of this. I remember specifically, I sell this home, buyer blows out of the deal, don't get called back from the seller. Then they relist with somebody else, and then another agent working with the buyer goes and sells it. And I found out about it later. There's nothing I could do. The fact that Sirhan is suing about this, I think that's actually also not a smart business move for them, because what that does, it takes your focus away from actually closing sales in the first place. Like the seller moved on and hired another agent and signed a
Right.
contract with them.
Right.
And there's a lot of speculation here. There's a lot of alleged thing. We don't have all the details.
Right. Because I mean, I would like, the whole point of contracts is to lose the gray area, right? To make it pretty like, this is what it is. If this happens, then this, then this. You know what I mean? Like, and I would think with those like commission pieces that would be, I mean, on the, state forms or like the state stuff, it's clearly laid out. I mean, can anybody just write their own contract? Like, is that legal anywhere?
So this is interesting. I mean, it might void your E&O insurance, right? Like there's a lot of ramifications to this stuff here. I mean, there's companies here that have like adjusted contracts that their legal teams put together that are mainly consistent with PAR documents. I think the problem with this is, and I'm looking at like the reaction. I mean, it's we hear a couple things. And one of them is like, I'm not understanding the rule. And this is from a legal consultant and a compliance expert. It doesn't make sense. Was there a tail to the contract, which is what that 180 days could be? And it's, and what people are saying from Douglas Elliman, this is without merit. This makes no sense. And why did the judge even hear it? Because if that's in the contract, like, I mean, that should just get thrown out of court. I mean, that to me is a bit ridiculous. And this is bad, because I mean, all of a sudden now, like you're entitled to everything. Like it's no different than the agent who says, "Oh, I was procuring cause here, but I have no contractual relationship. I don't have a buyer agency contract, but I emailed them the listing once." Like, I mean, this could be mayhem for the industry. And the whole point of real estate is either you sell the home or you don't. So that's what I get a little concerned about here.
Right. Yeah, I would be curious to see why if the judge broke down why he ruled it that way.
Well, I think it's getting appealed, so we're gonna find out. But I mean, it's
so does the commission just get held? Is it just kind of like being held in escrow somewhere until it gets resolved? Did it get paid to someone?
That I don't know. And what I'm clear on, and I've had this come up on listings where like a buyer comes in with one agent, and then some other agent calls me and says, "I'm representing this buyer." And the response I've gotten from our brokerage is, we can only honor the person on the agreement of sale. That's actually not the seller's problem. That's an issue between the buyer and the agent.
Oh yeah.
And this looks like it's an issue between the client and the agent here. I don't see how Douglas Elliman gets roped into this. They've done their job. They've sold the home. That's the only way you get paid in this business. It's just the fact that they're celebrating this stuff. I think it's a real problem, and it could be mayhem for the industry here. I mean, imagine how a client's going to feel. Like, I mean, they're going to be very careful. Like, if this gets upheld, all of a sudden, like, like, does it matter who you talk to? Like, I mean, what constitutes all this?
So how like on the buy side, if you sign an agreement with an agent and then you use a different agent and it's within your contract with the other one, the agent can go to the buyer and say, "Hey, you owe me the commission for this." Would the seller potentially have to pay out twice?
No, that would be, that's a buyer client issue, because you got to look at the parties in the contract. So, I think this is a bunch of BS, if you ask me. I have a hard time with this, and the fact that Ryan Serhant's touting this around is not good for the industry. I think it's actually bad for the industry because we deal in contracts. You should probably honor your contract.
Right.
That's all we got this week, ladies and fellas. You want to follow Sarah? She's on Instagram. It's at Ty_Ty Time. You can follow me at TomToole3RD, and we'll be back next week on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
All right, so we moved.
Wait, let me end this one.